Hi, I'm Terrell Sanders, the Executive Director of MinistryCOM, and with me today is Corey Miller from iThemes. We're going to talk about website tips and tricks. Some of you that aren't familiar with MinistryCOM, just give you some quick background here. MinistryCOM was created to be a national association to help church communications professionals, both in churches and charitable nonprofits. We host an annual conference. This year, our conference will be in Dallas, October 20th through 22nd. We've got details online on our website on MinistryCOM.org. This is the only national conference specifically for church communications. We're going to have several different tracks this year. We have a whole technology track, so if you're interested in web design, which probably you are if you're watching this session, there's a whole track on web design, social media, and some of the new exciting stuff going on. We also have over 60 educational sessions on our website that you can download for purchase. They're about $10 a piece, and you can go to MinistryCOM.org and see those. We present these webcasts on the third Thursday of every month at noon Central Time. They're also recorded, so we'll be online on the website afterwards. But the purpose of these is to provide educational information to our audience between conferences. We do the annual conference, but we try and provide some material between conferences, and also to provide some material to people that can't come to our national conference. The second reason we do this is we're trying to really support local groups. We've had local groups form before, and it's a struggle sometimes to get good content. So we try and provide these as a way of having at least once a month some new content. And we hope that if you're not in a local group right now, that you go ahead and talk to some friends, get some people together. Third Thursday of every month. If you watch it live, if you want to watch it recorded, then you can do whatever you want. But we hope that you can get this group together and start doing this on a regular basis. The format today, we'll have a Q&A time at the end. We'll talk for about 30 minutes and show some materials here. You will be able to send in questions. You can log into the streaming system here and ask questions that way. If you don't want to create a login, you can just send an email to info@ministrycom.org, and I'll get those. And then we'll stop in a little bit and answer some questions. There are some handouts on the website, on the MinistryCOM.org live site. There's some handouts right above the window. That has some of the PowerPoint slides that I'm using here. So feel free to ask your questions during the presentation. And I'm introduce Corey Miller here. Corey's our guest victim this week or this month. Corey's an old friend of mine. He's been in church communications for a long time. Actually was a former communications director for a large Baptist church. Now he is a serial entrepreneur. He's got iThemes.com, which builds premium themes for WordPress. He's got webdesign.com, which does education and training for web design, and pluginbuddy.com, which is a new company which is doing custom plugins for WordPress. He's also a speaker this year at MinistryCOM, doing a session for us on web design. And so Corey, we appreciate having you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot. What I want to do to start off with is just some of the things in the handouts, and then we'll have some more questions and some more information here in a minute. But I think that the best place to start is I'm going to give you my checklist of 15 things that you need to have on your website. If you've got a website up now, here's a checklist for you. We want to make sure that everyone has at least these minimum things on their website. We'll then talk about 15 things not to put on your website, and then we'll talk about a concept of a one-page website. So here we go, starting off with 15 basic things you need on your website. The first thing is we need a good domain name. We've got more than one client we've worked with that had some big, long, nasty, terribly abbreviated domain name, and it's hard for people to spell. It's hard for people to find a website if they can't remember your domain name. So it's important to spend a little bit of time finding a good domain name. Next thing to make sure you've got on your website is the name of your organization, the name of your church or your nonprofit. I especially see in churches that are real strong in branding sometimes, they'll have their vision statement, they'll have their slogan, they'll have their tagline, but they won't have the actual name of the church. So if I come to your church, I'm looking for the building, and the building doesn't say Friendly Place, the building says First Baptist or First Pres or whatever. That name needs to be on your website. The next thing is the full address with the zip code. We're growing up in a very GPS-oriented world now. A lot of your visitors are going to come, and they're going to be coming with their web tools, and they need a zip code. They need a real address. I especially see in small churches, maybe small town churches, you'll see addresses like 4th and Main or across from the post office or downtown. And well, downtown only works if you know the town. If you're from out of town, you don't really know where downtown is, or downtown may not be a very good description. So make sure that you got your full address with the zip code, something that people can use Google Maps for to find a location for you. The next item here is a phone number with an area code. Again, if you only think local, you don't think about the area code, but if you've got visitors, if you've got people coming in from out of town, they may need an area code to go with that phone number, and don't make them look that up. The next item is what I call a real email address. There's an awful lot of websites out there where the only email address on the website is down in the copyright line, and it's like webmaster@domain.com. And that email usually goes to the guy that built the website, and he's not managing your email. He's not talking to your visitors. He's only worried if the server's up or not. So we need a real email address, one that is monitored, one that people actually look at. So if a visitor does send you an email, which is getting more and more common. I mean, a lot of first-time visitors now will send you emails rather than call. That may be their first communication with you. That email address needs to be present on the site. It needs to be one that is actually being monitored. Next on our list is a map to the building. Again, the Google addresses is nice, but I've got a meeting tomorrow with a gentleman who says, okay, here's my address. He said, but the building is not visible from the street. So if you get lost, call me and I'll walk you in. If you've got an address like that, make sure there's a map on your site. Make sure people can find how to get to your building. Again, nice thing with Google Maps and some of the online tools, you can go to Google or your favorite mapping software. You can download a little widget that lets you put that on your site, and people can, if you mark where your church is, then people can then get directions from the airport or from the interstate or from their hotel or wherever. You don't have to write narratives out for all these things. But they can get their information. But there needs to be a map to the building on the website. The next one is a photo of the building. And I know a lot of people complain about, oh, the church is not the building. And in the old days, a lot of websites had this huge picture of the building across the front of the website. Obviously, that's not right. We don't want the building to be the focus of the website. But again, as a visitor, if I'm coming to your church, especially if you're not right on the street and you don't look like a church, if you're in a non-standard facility, if you're in a warehouse, if you're in a shopping center, I'd like to have a photo of the building. It can be small and over by the map and the directions. But as a visitor, I like to know when I get there. Conversely, I've been on some campuses that were so big that from the street you can't see the church because it's still 18 acres away from the street. And if you're on a large campus like that, again, it's nice to have some kind of a picture for people that are coming off the street. Here's where you turn. Here's where our driveway is, so they know where they are. Next item is a campus map. If you have more than one building, please give me a campus map. Again, I work with a lot of churches, and I'm always going to church buildings, and it's like, I can't find the office. And I know if I'm a visitor and I've got children trying to go to nursery, and you've got buildings all over the place, it's real frustrating. So give me a campus map if you've got more than one building. Another big one that gets forgotten, service times. You'd be amazed how many churches forget to post their service times on their website. With that, office hours. Make sure, and if you have a different physical office than your worship campus, then make sure you have a physical address for your office also. But make sure your office hours are posted. If your office is not with the worship center, then make sure there's addresses for both of those. If you have questions on these things, just send questions and we'll take them toward the end here. The next thing is the About Us paragraph. We need some kind of a paragraph that describes your church and kind of what makes you different, how you fit in the market. A lot of churches spend a lot of time on their statement of faith and their details of faith. I have not found on websites that to be used as much. You can do what you want there, but I have not found people searching websites for statements of faith. But a good About Us paragraph is a great thing to put on the website. Links to social media. Excuse me. Make sure you've got links to your Facebook page, to your Twitter account. Any ways people can follow you or contact you, make sure those links are on your website. Okay, now we'll get to some more controversy here. Photos of services and people. I think it's important. We use a lot of stock photos in websites because stock photos are just easy. Stock photos are always nice. Stock photos are always clean. We don't worry about members leaving the church later and ruining our, to reshoot photos. But we need a good master photo on the site, maybe in the masthead, maybe somewhere on the front page, a photo of your services, a photo of your people. And one of the reasons that I like this, because again, as a visitor, I want to see your dress code. I want to see your makeup. I want to see the age, the sex, the color of your audience. I want to know what I'm getting into. Is this going to be a bunch of young kids wearing cutoffs and flip-flops? Are these going to be a bunch of old people wearing suits and ties? Not judging, but I want to know. I don't want to walk into if your church wears suits and ties, I don't want to come in there with my flip-flops on. And conversely, if your church is young and hip and everybody's wearing blue jeans, I don't want to come in wearing a three-piece suit and white shirt and dark tie and stand out either. So the photo of the services, you don't need a lot of photos, but just something that lets me know what your membership is like, what your services are like. Along with that, a photo of the senior pastor. Again, there's been a lot of blogs saying, oh, you should never have the picture of the pastor on the website. That's another sign of a church that's got their priorities out of sync. This is not the big photo on the top of the page. This is a small photo down toward the bottom of the page or inside the bios. But quite frankly, when people come to your church, they need some connections. And the one person that more than likely everyone in the church is going to see at some point is the senior pastor. And so if I can see a picture of that person in advance, then I know who it is when I see them. And again, from that cultural point of view, I'd like to know in advance, is this guy 23 years old and has, the wild haircut? Or is this guy 65 years old? I mean, it's just, I want to know just a little bit about the culture. And that photo really helps. Along the same token, photos of key ministry leaders. And I do this, again, because I think visitors coming in want to know someone there. And if you've got photos of your staff people, your senior people, a nursery director, a children's director, a singles minister, a youth minister, a family minister, then when they come in, they've got a chance of seeing someone and go, okay, I know who this person is. Or if they come in as a visitor and they want to know more, then they know who they're looking for. It's like, oh, if I see this person, I want to ask them questions. So to me, it's important to get those photos. And these are mug shots. These aren't big bios, but just giving that visitor a chance to have a little bit of a not such a surprise when they come to the church. So there's a huge barrier for a lot of visitors coming into a church. If they don't come from a church background, they don't know what to expect. And what photos give us is a real easy way to show what it's going to be like, show what we look like, show what we act like, show how we dress, without having to write tons and tons of copy. Photos is a really easy way of doing that. So these are the 15 things that I think everybody should checklist on their website. If you've got questions or comments, please put them on the board right now, or send an email to info@ministrycom.org. Also, there's a handout on the website with this. And now I'm going to talk about my 15 things not to put on your website. We see an awful lot of websites that have things on that shouldn't be on there. And so I'll give you my 15 top bad things, and then we can have some discussion after that. First one's a splash page. And this goes back, if you're not familiar with splash pages are the things that come up to a website when you first log in, and you get a page that takes over the whole site. It's a full-page ad. It's a full-page video. It's something that you have to turn off before you can get to the site. Those are called splash pages. A lot of the reason splash pages exist was that people people get confused between push marketing and pull marketing. If you come from advertising and you're used to getting people's attention and jumping out in front of people, then things like splash pages are important because you get someone's attention. The web, though, if they're on your website, they've already come to you. I mean, this is like coming to the front door of your store. You walk into a Walmart store, and before you can come in the store and buy something, they say, no, you have to stand in the lobby and watch our commercials first. It's like, but I'm already here. I don't need to see your commercials. I'm ready to buy something. Well, you can't do it because you haven't seen our latest commercial yet. So splash pages, they're just generally a bad idea. If you've got content, put it on your website, but don't force someone to see something, watch some video first, see some ad first, before they get to the main site. Squeeze pages are the new one. Squeeze pages are typically a page that's designed to make you give an email address. So you see some of our marketing sites now where you go to a website, and before you can see the website, you've got to sign up for a mailing list. You've got to give us some piece of information. It works like a splash page. It's placed up over the website, and it says, hey, before you can see the website, join our mailing list. Again, it's just it's a bad idea. They've already come to you. They already have interest. Why would you stop them from seeing your website to collect an email address? Collect that in the website. Next item is automatically playing videos and audio, especially audio. A lot of people are watching these things on their website, on their offices. They don't want audio playing automatically. Video that auto plays can be annoying too. Make sure if you have video and audio, those are great things. We highly recommend adding those to your site, but they should not auto play. The next item on the list here is what I call putting key data inside graphics. And this is putting information inside a graphic that search engines should be seeing. So make sure that your address, your phone number, your mission statement, all the words you want Google to see, they need to be in text. If you build a real beautiful picture and put all your copy in a graphic and then save it in Photoshop and save it on your website, Google can't see that. Google can't see the words inside your graphics. So make sure that the words you want Google to see are in text on your website and not inside some graphic. Next item here is designs that overwhelm content. We've got a lot of well-meaning graphic designers who want their website to be the best in the very world, and they design these websites that are so design-intensive that you can't actually find the content. So if I come to your website and trying to find out what time Vacation Bible School is and what room it's in, I can't find it because I've got so much stuff going on. It's a challenge. Next, and kind of on that same item, is multiple moving elements. We like moving elements. We like things that move. We like animations. We like flash elements. There's lots of good reasons to put things that move on your site, but probably only one on a page. We've got clients that want everything to stand out. They want everything on the page to be moving or flashing or blinking or something. And at some point, people are getting nauseous. It kind of becomes a roller coaster ride to try and navigate through your site. With that, everything fighting for focus is the next point. I mean, if you've got a website where everything on all the copy is in bold, all the copy is in headline font, all the elements are top, it's poor design. It's hard for a user to come in and use your site when everything's a headline. You have to kind of prioritize and give them a way of going through the site and seeing the whole site, rather than being just hit with this wall of everything being a headline. Next item is all Flash sites. Sites that are built entirely in Flash. Not opposed to Flash per se, but if your whole site's in Flash, again, it does hurt your search engine rankings. I know there's some new stuff now. Search engines are a lot better than they were with Flash sites, but still, if your site's entirely in Flash, it won't work as well with search engines, and it won't work at all on the new iPhones or the new Apple devices. So if you're not interested in search engines or Apple users, you can build yourself a site in Flash, but there's not too many people with that. Next item is what I call creative navigation. Again, we get some great creative people that want to make their site the best and they want to push the envelope. Navigation is the part of the site that tells you how to get places. It's all the buttons that tell you how to get to the parts. Navigation should be boring. Navigation should be predictable. We don't want creative navigation. If I have to think about your navigation and figure out where something is in your site, then you've done a poor job. You can be creative other places, but navigation is not the place you want to be creative. It needs to be very plain, very boring, standard words, standard locations. People need to be able to very easily guess where things are on your site. Next one is improperly sized photos. Most of our tools now will let you upload any photo you want, and they'll just automatically thumbnail it for you. But still, when the user views it, they're viewing the download speed is the size of the photos. So if you've got a lot of very large photos on your site, and they're displaying as thumbnails, but they're still huge photos, that's hurting the user's experience. When they download the page, it's becoming a challenge for them there. Last items here. Useless plugins, and we fight. We've got some clients that we love, but they want the weather bug on their website. They want a clock on their website. They assume, and this is probably happens more with older people than with younger people, but they think that people are going to use our website as their homepage, that they're going to use our website as their portal, and they're going to come in every morning, get our website, and from there go to the news, and from there go to the weather. It doesn't work that way. People can use your website to get church information about your church. They know what time it is. They've got a clock on their computer already. If they want the weather, they'll go to the weather they've got links for that. All those useless plugins just annoy people and clog up your site. Next one is non-standard fonts. You have to remember as you build the site, the fonts, the text fonts that are available to your user are only the fonts that are on their machine. So if you use fonts that aren't standard fonts, you may have 10,000 fonts on your machine, but if you use a non-standard font and your client doesn't have that, the browser they have will replace it with Arial or Helvetica or something very plain. So make sure that you stay with standard fonts, or at least realize that your beautiful design with your beautiful fonts will change when users see it if they don't have all those fonts. Next is copyrighted materials, meaning other people's copyrighted materials. There's kind of an idea that if it's on the internet, it's free. If it's on the internet, it's public domain. That's not really true. You can link to other people's material, but you really shouldn't be posting copyrighted materials on your website if you don't have permission. You can get permission. It's fairly easy usually. Next one is oversized page layouts. Again, back to, I love our graphic designers, but if your graphic designer's got a 42-inch screen and designs things that are designed for that, and then I see it on my small screen, it's hard to view it. With that, tiny fonts in the next one. I mean, come in and like, man, this was designed by a guy on a Mac that's got this huge monitor. It looks great on a huge monitor. But for those of us that are regular people, the layout's way over designed. It scrolls off the page in two different directions, and I can't read the fonts. So those are my 15 items to put on your site and not put on your site. Corey, did you have any suggestions or comments on either of those? Or?
I think it's right on. You point out some really good things that hit at the heart of it is trying to, be human through your website. You talked about putting pictures of ministry leaders up on your site, and I think that's key because that's a representation of who the church is, your website is, because it's up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and so that's vital.
Cool. Something that came out of these checklists, and this next item is a one-page site. My company, my day job when I'm not doing MinistryCOM is building websites. We build for churches, we build for nonprofits, and we build for for-profits. And so we run across a lot of cases where there's people that have no site at all, no website at all, or they have a site that's a total disaster. They have a site where an under construction page would be better than the current site. The site's outdated, the site is wrong, the site's got the old pastor that died 3 years ago. And so we run into these people, and especially in nonprofits, that the cycle to launch a new website can take months or even a year. And so there's this huge time when they need a new site, but they can't get a new site up. And as I put together this outline for this 15 things you need on your website, I was sitting there and I realized, if you just took those 15 things and put them on one page, you'd have a one-page website that would be better than probably 20% of the churches and nonprofits out there. So let me give you a formula here. This is a one-page website, and I'm not recommending this for everyone. I'm recommending this for people that if you have no site at all, or if you have a disaster site and you're bogged down in committee, you're bogged down in finance, you're bogged down in how to get the next step up, here's a way to build a one-page site in 1 hour for less than $10. And so step one is collect the 15 basic things off of our first checklist. And again, we've got these available as on the website, on the MinistryCOM Live page. You can download that checklist. Collect those 15 basic things. Go to WordPress.com, pick their free site, put the 15 things on the default page. Don't worry about how it looks. Just stick them in there. If you paid $9.97, then you can forward your own domain to it for a year. And then you can use WordPress posts for any news items you need. But for most people, just getting this static site on the air is a good start. Here's an example site that I've done. And if you go to turtlesanders.wordpress.com, you'll see, let me see if I can toggle this thing without. All right. This is the site that I built in less than an hour. There's no programming in this. This is the default template from WordPress. It's got one picture. It's got the 15 elements I talked about. They're just stuck in there in order. There's no formatting. I know if you're design people, you're all cringing. You're saying, oh, but there's so much design can be done. That's great. We will do a professional website later. But if you don't have a website at all, This site right here will be better than a lot of you have online today. It will certainly give you a decent, usable, temporary site until you can until you get the main site back up. Okay, last thing here on the PowerPoints. When you're building a one-page site, here's my 4 do nots. Okay, do not spend more than 15 minutes on copy. The number one thing that kills websites is people going to committee to write the perfect copy, and we don't see them for 6 more months. Put something together, make it fast. Don't let anybody approve it. Just stick it on the website, get it up. Don't buy a CSS book so you can tweak the look. Take the defaults. Don't form a committee to pick the header photo. Just pick a photo. And don't waste days and time looking for a cheaper or faster way. There's lots of tools out there. I'm suggesting WordPress.com because I know it. It's easy. It's cheap. There's other solutions. But for a lot of people, just getting a site on the air, that's what I'm trying to stress right here. So that's all I've got for the PowerPoints now. We'll come off the PowerPoints. But hopefully that was useful. Corey, talk to me a little bit more. What suggestions do you have for people in this world here?
You bet. So when I was in church communications work, I mean, the website was one of the most affordable, effective things we could have done as a church in the form of communication with prospective guests. Mm-hmm. Now, I always like to refer to visitors as guests because guest is, I invite a guest into my home. I don't invite visitors into my home. I invite guests. So I think that needs to be in that terminology in the site. Mm-hmm. But what we found was the website was one of the most effective, affordable tools that help people understand who we were as a church and how to get there, all the type of things that you mentioned in your presentation. The one-page website you mentioned was great. That's a great template for content, for what needs to be on a page. And so you take a WordPress.com account, start that out. I love that philosophy because it's a good starter place. Most people will think of this grand vision they need to implement in a website and, like you said, get hung up for months or never do one. So one page is a great start. But like I said, what we found with the website was it was just neat to see new people come in and say, how did you find us? And they'd say, we went to your website, we scoured your website, we looked at all the ministry leaders and all that kind of stuff. I love how you say, put a picture of your pastor and ministry leaders up there because, if we're being honest about church guests and things, spiritually they should be drawn, there mm-hmm. for those type of reasons. But when it comes down to it, is the face of the pastor is one of the most warm, welcoming type of things that, they want to know who is in that church, the people of that church. So I like what you mentioned there because those leaders are the first people they'll probably have contact with or associate with the church. So having photos on is good.
That came to me, especially I was working with a client that worked with a prospect and then go through this church's website and looking at their staff directory and their youth minister in this particular church was about a 75-year-old man. And he was wearing a dark suit, white shirt, red tie in his staff photo. And again, not judging, but that's not where my kids are from. And my kids would very much be surprised to see a youth minister that was that old and was wearing a suit and tie to church. We want to know that before we showed up. There's others of you that probably wouldn't like my youth minister, but would want that. So, once you see it, you go, okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Or, okay, I'm glad I found that out in advance.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I think a website, just like any communication material that you put out, needs to be an adequate reflection of who you are as a DNA, your church DNA, not something that's fake. So, if that is your church minister, then that's who you need to portray. Because like you said, some people will go to that particular church for that look or whatever like that is. But I think, you need to be real genuine and authentic about how you portray your church on your website. So, really think through those things. Don't try to be something you're not. You and I have seen churches that try to be something they're not. And, it's kind of fruitless because you're almost selling people a bill of goods, a false product when they get there and they're like, well, this isn't like what the brochure, or the site looks like, So
that's for stock photos. Some people don't look that good.
Yeah, and that's hard for stock photos because I've been there and I know the challenge is you want to include church people in the photos, but it's also you have to go shoot the photos. Yeah. You have to go get permission to do that type of stuff and put them on your site. So and that's always a balancing act. But going back to what you said is the church leaders, pastor, that's a great start there.
Cool.
One thing I was thinking, Tara, when you're writing is when I first got several churches. Well, I worked at 2 churches. I was in ministry communications for 6 years, and both of those churches had a significant amount of Yellow Book advertising that they spent on every year on Yellow Book advertising. And for a small fraction of that cost, they could get a website up that adequately communicated who that church was, and it could be functional. It wasn't a rising cost type of thing.
Right.
You could measure it,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was kind of ranting against in my days in ministry against the Yellow Book advertising just because of the effectiveness. You can measure, you can see, you can give people keys to the website to help you keep it up to date, and so that's one of my things is that goes back to the website. It's such an important, vital tool, and especially in the age of Google and people looking to the web first before they may even stop in. They want to get to know you, and so the web is just such a great platform for that.
Right. I was in a church a few years ago, and a lady came in, a young lady. She was probably a fresh college graduate who's moved to Oklahoma City, came and visited church, and the very first time she visited, when they gave the invitation at the end, she came to place membership. And she actually had print off a form off of the church's website. They had a form for if you want to place membership, the questions they're going to ask you. And she had printed this format and brought it up, and so she hands it to the pastor, and he looks at it, and one of the elders is there, he looks at it, and goes, "What is this?" And the preacher's like, "I think it's off the website." But neither of them even knew it was there. But for this young 20-something person, she had gone, when she moved into town, she had gone to several churches' websites and had just taken the websites apart and found the church she thought was the best fit. And she visited the church that she thought was the best fit. And when she visited, since it met her expectations, she placed membership. She did not visit any other churches. In her mind, this 20-something-year-old kid decides that I've already visited 6 churches because I went to all their websites. So when she physically goes to one of them, the person that has the number 2 website or number 3 website or number 4 website, they may not get visited. And if you're over 40 years old, you can't understand that. You can't imagine that. But if you're looking at attracting young people and young families, your website is so huge because in their minds, when they go through and look at 10 websites, they've visited 10 churches already. Mm-hmm. And if they come to one church and it meets what they expected, they may place membership.
Yep.
And if you're the number 2 church, the number 3 church on their list, you may not get a physical visit.
I think what this boils down to is not just a cool technology that is shiny. You were mentioning don't look at all Flash type sites, mm-hmm. Adobe Flash. It's not about cool technology. It's about effectiveness. So I would love to have a picture of that pastor's face when he looks down at the thing. And but it's about effectiveness. That girl found the site through and found that church and decided to come forward because of that site and what she had read there. That's not about just cool technology and fun things that people may understand or, whatever. That's about communication at its core, what MinistryCOM is about. How do we adequately communicate who we are, what our message is to the people in our, mission field? Mm-hmm. And so that hits it at the core, though, is that it's about communication, not bling, not little cool fancy toys that flash and play autoplay like you mentioned. So that's an excellent story. I love that picture if you can get it.
I do want to remind everybody out there, if you've got questions or comments, either email info@ministrycom.org or log in through the webcast tool and make your comments there. We're going to take questions here in about 5 or 10 more minutes, and we'll talk some more, get some feedback from you. I think from the churches that I work with, nonprofits I work with, one of the biggest challenges we face are groups that want to over-design their website. We spend months with committees arguing over colors, arguing over fonts, arguing over the bling, not the content. And what we're seeing as the web evolves is there's fewer and fewer destination websites. There's not too many websites people go to just for fun. I mean, there's a few industries that have games or pornography or whatever that people go to just for the fun of it. But for most websites, it's about content. Mm. And people come to your website to get content. They want your address. They want your phone number. They want to know when VBS is. They want to know what to bring to class. They want to know what's going on. And so the more stuff you stick on there, the more you're slowing them down. One of the comments came on the website was, I don't like having to click multiple times to get to something. The more stuff you've got put onto your website, and unfortunately, this is often design stuff. This is the stuff that graphics people are paying big bucks and spending a lot of effort in to make it look really, really flat, be an experience. And what's an experience? Well, I don't meet too many web users who are looking for an experience. They're looking for content. And so streamlining the website, we're seeing fewer websites look like Disney and more websites look more like CNN. We're here to deliver content, and your church has a brand, your church has a feel, and the website needs to reflect that. But it is not the brand itself. You don't have to have every element of your church in the website. The content is the big thing, and the churches that have good content have very usable websites, and that's where I see that the all-flash websites kind of lean toward that. Let's make this a really cool experience. And it's like, well, okay, but if I can't find the calendar, then the experience didn't do me any good.
Yeah, it's just a communication tool when you boil it down to its simplest. And I think that is when you talk about it as a communication tool, is how do we impart who we are and what we believe, what we're all about, to someone. And when you look at it through that lens, it makes priorities switch a little bit. Where the flash experience, for instance, is, oh wow, that was cool. Yeah. But what did I know? What did I learn about this church? And so, people get a website blown out of proportion and do all these kind of fancy things that you're trying to guard against, which is why I go back to that one-page website. The key about the one-page website is start somewhere. When I got to both of the churches that I was at, the website was nowhere near where I wanted it to be. But it was a step in the right direction. So, baby steps,
Baby steps.
First baby step is go to that one-page website, get something rolling. And what I like to tell people is interact with that. Get the feedback from people. What are people asking? One of the things I meant to mention, when you were talking about this, writing notes here, is you said put your email address on the site. Now, the other thing is I say go a step even further than that. You can put your email address where they click on it and it pops up an email browser.
Right.
I go a step forward. I've seen in anything, in business and anywhere, the easiest way to get people to contact you, because, the web is such a nice passive thing. I don't have to get out of my shell. Right. I can type and all that kind of stuff, is a contact form. An easy-to-use HTML form that says name, email address, subject, and text, where I can say, I don't understand exactly where Jericho Hall is. Well, nobody in the church does either. But anyway, and then they can just press send, where they don't have to open up an email program. So a contact form would be something I would suggest too. But all boiling it down to its essence, you want someone to learn the core, vital, essential things about your church, so that they can feel comfortable to make a visit, to be a guest of your church. And so all these type of tools that you're mentioning are so effective to boil it down to its essence, start there, see how people interact with it, and then take it to the next step. Call Main Street, and say, we got our one page now, Terrell. We've done this for 6 months, and we're ready to take this thing to the next level. What's the next baby step in this iteration? And I think that's a great way to approach it.
And a challenge that a lot of nonprofits have, not just churches, but a lot of nonprofits, is it's easier to get a committee and a budget approval for one big thing one time than a string of small steps. And I've worked with churches that brought me way too much money and did way too much planning for a website they weren't ready for. And if they had bought something that cost a tenth of the price and then upgrade it 10 times in a row, put a lot better site. But just do the committee structure and the budget structure and the political structure. It's like, no, I can get $1 million once, but I can't get $500, over and over again, because that's that many more approvals, and it causes us challenge. Now,
what you do with that, though, is you say, you take every single story. The lady that has the form that she printed out, you collect those stories as the person that's the webmaster, the communications person, whoever that runs the websites. You take every single story. You measure it through statistics, analytics programs. You do all that stuff and say, look, we had this many guests this month. And then that is your, credibility. That's your facts that you go back and say, okay, after this is what we experienced from this. We got to do this. This is a emotionally we see results from this. We see people walking down the aisle, coming into the doors, and they're saying, so you need to have ways to measure that. Stats programs, little cards where they say, how'd you find out about us? The website. You take all that to that next committee and say, tell me why we shouldn't spend this money.
Yeah. we're going to go ahead and take some questions now. I'll make a few announcements real quick while you're finishing up your questions. We've got a few of them here. You can review these.
Oh, yeah.
The MinistryCOM conference is coming up. The national conference will be in Dallas this year. It'll be in Frisco, Texas, actually, October 20th through 22nd. Wednesday, the 20th, we have a mega church tour. We tour area churches in the Dallas area, and there's some very mega churches in the Dallas area. And then Thursday and Friday is the main conference. And there's information online on ministrycom.org. Corey's teaching a session with his partner on building a rocking church website. So if you need a rocking church website, Corey will talk about how to design it for you and how to build that. I haven't talked too much about iThemes, but iThemes has got a lot of great WordPress tools, very inexpensive tools for in the WordPress, the open source world. And then I'm leading a session on usable website design, and my subtitle is that everything I know about web design I learned in the airport. And basically it falls to that whole concept of navigation should be boring, websites are about content, your website is a conduit to get places, it's not the destination itself. So if you're interested in this information, MinistryCOM's a great place. Check out the website, check out the registrations. We got some questions coming in. I know one question that I saw earlier was, did anything in that 15 list change on a small church? I don't think so. I think in a small church you have the same basic communications. I want to know where you are. I want to know who you are, times, dates, places. I think most of that 15 list was kind of the concept was a small church to begin with.
Well, when you look at it, the significant amount of churches, percentage-wise, in America are a small, really small, 50 people, type church. So, and what you're saying here is absolutely right on. I think you go straight there. The one-page website is perfect for that. The majority of churches in America, for instance, are those small churches. A one-page website is the perfect tool for that. So I think all of that applies equally. A church that comes in on a $10,000 website that's 15 members may have spent their money a little bit, a little bit wrong, may I say.
Yeah. All right, here they come.
I'm sorry, I was trying to look in here and see what kind of questions we got.
Talking about social media. That's going to become the future. There's going to be a question long term. What content goes on your website? What content goes on your social media? There's an argument. I don't know if I buy it entirely. But there's an argument that almost puts the website becomes static. And then all of your dynamic content goes to Facebook, goes to Twitter. All your meetings, all your classes, all your content, all your dynamic content goes to your social media, and your website becomes a great big business card. I'm not sure I completely buy that, but there's a greater truth in that. I think I think the idea of having a lot of your content out in social media works very well. I think there's a dovetail. Most of the sites we're building now have a dovetail where we're cross-posting kind of. We have RSS feeds that come off the website that go into Facebook. So your Facebook page has news on it that came off your website, and your website links back to your social media. Your social media links back to your website, and you keep it all going here.
Yeah, what I would caution with any tool, these are just tools, is to gauge where you are, as a church. Is your community on Twitter? My assumption with the church crowd is Facebook's going to be a very effective medium for communication. I mean, it interrelates, people, church members, stuff like that, where you can share and it can go viral. I mean, I think that for churches, Facebook is an excellent platform of communication. I'm seeing a lot of churches do that. Twitter, you have to weigh. Are you, ask people in your church, do you even use Twitter, and see if it's an effective medium for you. Now, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media stuff that we've talked about are kind of outposts. They're things that you control in some sense, but not like a domain name that you own on your own hosting or whatever. And, we always say you want a home, right? You want somewhere where you've got full control of it. You've got control of the hosting, the email accounts, all that kind of stuff. And then use these other outposts, as some of the experts like to call them, like Facebook and Twitter, as just, go where the people are, right? And so if those are where the people are, you go there, but you also have somewhere you can point back to that's more something, like we're talking about today, your website.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had a question about photo resizing. She's using Pixinate.com for photo resizing, and it's free. And do we have any recommended photo resizing tools? Do you have anything you recommend?
Yeah, Adobe Photoshop is the default, but it's extremely expensive. But they have a cheaper, scaled down version called Photoshop Elements, and it's on Mac and the PC. It's probably $80, I think.
$80, yeah. It's funny because I was thinking that same thing. Yeah. I was waiting to see what you said, but
well, I thought you were going to go with GIMP.
No.
I thought that's what you're going to lead with.
There's free stuff and there's easy stuff. I mean, you can use Picasa. There's a lot of free tools, but I think if you're really in church communications for the long term, I would lean toward pay the $80.
Yeah.
Get the Adobe Photoshop Elements and start learning the whole way Adobe works. Because at some point you're going to be ready to upgrade to the $700 version or whatever the big version is. But you're learning skills and you're building up some processes. So it's not easy. I use Photoshop Elements. The guys that work for me use real Photoshop, but I'm not quite that smart. So I'm learning it. But that would be my recommendation: is start working toward the professional tools. There's some cool free stuff out there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just a volunteer, then look at Picasa, look at some of the tools like that. But if you're really in church communications, I would lean toward, do it right.
If you're a professional working in some kind of design aspect, communications aspect, full-time with the church, you want the Adobe suite. You want Adobe Photoshop, InDesign, stuff like that. But if you're, just helping out, trying to assist, Photoshop Elements is a great beginner's type tool to start with, and it's got a ton of functionality and documentation, all that kind of stuff, where it really help you. So as far as resizing goes, I would say that. Now, too, Terrell, is within WordPress resizes photos for you with the thumbnail.
A lot of the content managers do that now. Yeah.
So depending on what website software you use, it can help you. Now, you still don't get a huge image on a site. You need to have some kind of cropped version of that for the web.
There's a comment on the board here about the pastor wants a more interactive site, and I see that as one of those questions where, some boss has read some book, gone to some seminar, and has got a buzzword, and I want the website to be more interactive because good churches have interactive websites. Without defining what the word interactive really means.
The great question is, say, Pastor, who interacts with that person? Who's the real human being? Are you going to do it? Who's that person interacting? When you say interactive, like you're hitting at it, is define interactive. What does that mean? Now, a contact form is in a sense interactive, right? Since an email, there can be a back and forth. But it's funny because I carry 6 years of baggage dealing with pastors and ministry professional. MinistryCOM is really about grief counseling.
There's a lot of grief counseling
for communications professionals in churches.
Group therapy, we called it in the early days. Yeah,
group therapy.
Yeah. If you think church communications is very, very difficult, it's driving you crazy, then come to MinistryCOM and you will meet a couple hundred people like yourself, and you can all
don't feel so bad about yourself.
That it's not just you. It really is a hard job, and it doesn't matter how good your staff is. It's a tough job.
You'll know that pastors are great from the pulpit and probably not as good once they step off that stage about communicating. I'm the same way, and so you'll be able to say, my pastor, he changes the sermon title on Friday afternoon after I printed the bulletin. By the way, you're not alone. That happens all the time.
Well, and I think when you look at the interactive question, what do you want to be interactive? I mean, it's a buzzword. It sounds real cool, real Web 2.0. What does Web 2.0 mean? But if your website is putting out the information, and its core job is to publish the information. If you think about your newsletter, I mean, I used to work with when I was trying to help people figure out what to put on their website. It's like, okay, look at all the things you publish through direct mail, you post on the wall, you hand out in church. Look at all those things and don't ask which of those should we put on the website. Just ask which ones of those shouldn't be on the website. For security reasons and privacy reasons and stuff like that, not everything needs to be on the website. But for the most part, if you're publishing it in the bulletin, it probably should be on the website. If you're putting flyers on the wall that says sign up for so-and-so concert or event, it probably should be on the website. Yeah. If you're sending postcards to people's houses saying, don't forget X, those should be on the website or be in the e-news.
Oh, totally.
So interactive starts with, let's just put the stuff out that we're doing other ways.
Yeah.
And then if people want to interact back and fill out a contact form or send an email back or follow our RSS feed or our Twitter feed, then okay, you've now achieved Web 2.0. But it's really just the same communication you've always been doing. It's just a new flavor.
Now, this doesn't answer the question, but it gets at a fundamental philosophy that I always believed about church communications and being in church ministry work, is that when I went to buy my home, I didn't try to buy it myself. I wanted to find an expert to help me, where I could ask questions, say, is this going to be a problem, this water spot that collects in the lawn? What do you think about the foundation? I wanted an expert to tell me that, And so pastors often, I love pastors,
yeah.
But they'll often think that they're the professional. They're the website professional when actually they're the Greek, Hebrew preaching books, they can preach on Acts.
Well,
but when it comes to web design,
seminary, communications is oratory. It's public speaking. Yeah. It's not marketing and advertising.
And so what I was going to say is, as a communication professional, you need to be equipped, okay, to be the expert. You need to come to MinistryCOM. You need to come to these broadcasts. Every chance you can, soak up information, read books, be a lifelong learner with that aspect. That's a big key for me, so that you have an informed opinion. So when your pastor comes and says, I want the website more interactive, you can say, here is a set of reasons why this website, I'm going to design the website this way, so you kind of understand better and can communicate that to that ministry professional, that you are the communications expert there. I always feel like you need to set the tone, because I never expected to walk into our CFO or accountant's office and say, you know what, I think we should use this software. I think it's going to be better having never used it,
Right.
I would never assume that. And that's the same way I feel about a communications professional, is you should know what you're doing, be an expert, continually sharpen your sword, so that you can communicate that back to those ministry professionals where they're saying, you know what, I'm going to delegate this to you. You know what you're talking about so well. Right. You need to be fluid with that. You need to soak it in, and you be able to communicate it back.
Yeah. A question came in through an email and asked for permission to reproduce our materials and link to them. Please don't remove our copyrights. Don't say it's yours, but any of the handouts, any of the videos here, feel free to link to them. Feel free to blog about them. Feel free to use them for your staff meetings. That's what they're for. Just don't put your name, don't block my name out, put your name over it. That's all I ask. But please,
We'll take those materials, okay, with the Main Street, MinistryCOM logo, and say, Terrell's been doing this for 20 years. I think he knows what he's doing. I'm just saying that to say, it's talking about philosophy and know what you're doing.
Right.
That's why you find experts. If you're not that expert, you find the people that can to help you be partners. We were in a meeting a couple weeks ago where it was good to be able to say, Terrell's walked here. He's been in whatever ministry, whatever website professional you end up using is, being able to say, this person has this amount of experience, where it's like, I'm never going to debate somebody about Greek and Hebrew, but I can probably talk pretty proficiently about web design, just like, you can.
Great.
So that's what I was going to say. Use them. That's the first place. Use your materials to help.
Please use these
Why
materials.
You shouldn't put Amazing Grace autoplay in your website.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up to stay on time here. I want to thank everyone for coming in, and thank you for the comments and the participation. There's a lot of discussion on the board this time. People talking to each other. That's great. Remember, Corey and I will both be teaching sessions at MinistryCOM in Dallas coming up. Next month's live webcast will be Thursday, July 15th. Again, it's at noon Central Time, so whatever time you saw it this time, it's the same time. Thursday, July 15th. You can sign up for reminders on the website. Please invite a friend, make this a group effort. And we hope to see you at MinistryCOM. The early bird deadline is still coming up. We've still got a nice hotel package that will sell out, so check out for the details. And we look forward to seeing you at MinistryCOM. And see you next month. Thank you.